Welcome in, season 43, episode 20. We're going to talk to Miss Rhonda Robinson of the Focus on the Family Network here in just a moment. We're going to talk to her about homeschool versus public school and which is best for your family. That's the topic today. Thank you for tuning in to the Harvest Focus podcast. We've got a big weekend coming up, and starting with Sunday morning, the 18th, Sunday school morning worship is at 10 a.m. Last Wednesday night, I preached a message entitled, Do All Speak with Tongues? This Sunday, I'm going to preach about the promise of Pentecost. If you need the baptism of the Holy Ghost, make sure you're with us Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Sunday night, we have pre-service prayer at 4. Bible study is at 5. We have our graduate reception at 6:15. They're also going to celebrate, I think, my birthday that night as well. It's going to be a big night. Make sure you're with us all day. May the 18th, coming up Monday night the 19th, Celebrate Recovery. It's taking place down at the Helping Hand. Brother Michael Green is doing a fantastic job. The Helping Hand is located on 22nd Avenue here in Humboldt. It all begins at 7 p.m. If you're struggling with addictions or you're needing to recover from a tragic event in your life, you can definitely go to that and benefit from that class. That's Monday night at 7 o'clock at the Helping Hand of Humboldt. Tuesday night is family prayer at 7 o'clock p.m. Wednesday night, midweek refresh is at 7 o'clock. I'm going to preach a message entitled The Exceeding Greatness of His Power. Then on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. is ladies' prayer. Don't miss a single event or activity at Harvest Church Humboldt. You can go to our website, harvesthumboldt.com. That is harvesthumboldt.com. You can email us at harvesthumboldt@gmail.com, and we will reply quickly to you there. Or the easiest way to know things is download our app. We'll be back right after this with Miss Rhonda Robinson. We are joined today by homeschooling pioneer Rhonda Robinson, and she works with Focus on the Family in the Parenting and Youth Department. And first off, Miss Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Harvest Focus.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Appreciate you being here today. And homeschooling is becoming quite the thing now. However, you've been in the homeschooling movement for quite some time. Why don't you give a little bit of your background and kind of give the qualifications for you to talk today on this subject to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, I began homeschooling in the 1980s. So,
Okay.
Yes, that dates me so bad. But I have two children who are special needs. They're hearing impaired.
Okay.
And so my oldest son, he just fell through the cracks. They were not equipped to teach him. So year after year, they would tell me things like, "He's a delightful boy. We just so enjoy having your son in our class," but he didn't learn anything this year.
Oh.
And so, hearing impairment is one of those invisible disabilities.
Yes.
He spoke fine. He looked like he was absolutely normal, but he could only catch every third word because he read lips. And so he did not survive well in a classroom environment. One day they sat me down and they were telling me that they had kept him back 2 years in a row.
Oh.
And that the next step was going to be, he was supposed to be going into third grade, and they said, "We're going to have to put him in a learning disabilities class." And I said, "But he's not learning disabled." And they said, No, he's not. He tests out. That is not his problem. He said, and the teacher looked at me and she said, "Frankly, Mrs. Robinson, we don't have the time to put the one-on-one on with him that he needs."
Goodness.
And my heart just sunk, and I thought, but I do.
That's right.
And so from that moment on, I knew that my boy needed me.
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. And you've wrote over more than 1,000 articles and 2 award-winning books. Why don't you give the names of those books real quick if somebody hasn't read those?
Sure. The first one is Free Fall, Holding On to Faith When the Unthinkable Strikes.
Okay.
That came out in 2020. And the second one is The Legend of Christmas, the untold story of the real Saint Nicholas.
Okay.
And that was written under a pen name, but we do have a new homeschooling book coming out from Focus on the Family.
All
called
right.
The Thriving Homeschool, and that will come out next spring.
Awesome. Fantastic. Done a lot of TV
Thank you for asking.
interviews, radio interviews, and podcasts just like this one. And you're helping us talk about some difficult issues. And you've gave your background and kind of how you got into this so people can now know kind of the perspective and viewpoint that you're coming from. I'm homeschooling my children. Matter of fact, as we speak, they sit at a desk in front of me. They're doing their schoolwork, and I bring them to the office with me if their mother is working. She works PRN as a nurse, and so when she's not home, I'm teacher, pastor, dad, all those things at one time, and I understand homeschooling can be challenging. And I'm going to ask you a question that I know the answer to because I know my kids don't suffer from social problems because we're all the time around people. But that's the common question is, will my child develop as well socially if they're homeschooled? I'll let you kind of take that question.
Sure. The reason why people say that is because they're laboring under a false belief that the only way to socialize our children is to lock them in a room with peers of their own age all day.
Yeah.
And that by interacting simply with peers of their own age, that's socialization. And what homeschooling parents quickly learn, as you have, is that has nothing to do with socialization. In fact, that has more to do with the detriment of our children's self-esteem, their ability to think independently, their ability to really follow in their parents' values and belief systems. It's really more of a detriment. But homeschooling, like you were talking about, bringing your child to work with you, they get exposed to all sorts of different types of people of all different ages, younger children, older adults, and so they learn to communicate on so many different levels.
Yeah.
And can I tell you a quick story real quick?
Sure, yeah.
I had a gal, I asked her if she was a doctor, and I asked her, I kind of thought she came in to focus on the family for an interview, and I thought she homeschooled. And so I asked her, I said, do you homeschool your children? She says, no, we didn't. She says, but I'll tell you what, if you line up 10 children in front of me, and one of them's a homeschooler, I can pick them out.
Oh.
Every time. And she said, because they will look me in the eye, they'll talk to me, they know how to converse with adults.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could tell you from just a personal experience, my daughter, it was always amazing. People would just stop us and they would say, she uses big words and she knows what they mean. I mean, and she was just 7, 8 at the time, and she could walk up to any adult and have a conversation, and they were just blown away. My son, we just established a rule in our house, like, you're not going to use a word you don't know what it means. And I thought, he was copying his sister, but no, he knew what the words meant. Long before he could even read, he was able to have, pretty adult conversations with people and in-depth conversations about subjects. And Rhonda, we've all seen people do homeschooling right, and we've also seen them do it wrong, where, you can't just throw a book in front of a kid and say, get out of my hair. How can we instruct our kids as effectively as private or even public school teachers?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I started homeschooling, those parents were the ones that had gone before me. That was the belief of all homeschoolers. I had a principal tell me I'd never seen a real homeschooler. They were all truants or drunks. And I said, well, I assure you, sir, I am neither. And we went on to prove that.
Yeah.
As far as the homeschooling situation, I can't really speak to, I guess I can. So the homeschooling situation, whether you're homeschool or private school, the bottom line is that we are parents. And homeschooling doesn't mean now we're adding education to our list of responsibilities. We've always had education as our list of responsibilities.
It's
good. Just that our modern culture that's just been the way we've done it for so many years, to send them off to school, when in reality, that's not God's intention for the family. Right. We are responsible for the spiritual, physical, and mental development of our children. And so if you put your child in public school, because for whatever reason, not everybody can homeschool, and I get that. Not everybody should. But that doesn't mean that you abdicate your responsibility for educating your child and knowing what what they're being taught, and seek out the best alternative for your child.
Well, it's like, homeschooling or even public school, you're saying we need that in the home no matter what. And it's the same way with church. You don't expect the Sunday school teacher to teach them everything or the church to teach them everything about God. We have to do that as parents. And I like how you're bringing that out today. Now you're bringing us to the next question, and that is, we need some keys, because I know I'm going to be taking notes on this part, because it's hard sometimes to turn the teacher off and be the parent. And what are keys to maintaining that parent-child relationship while I'm also their teacher when it's school time?
Well, I don't think you have to have two different hats, because
Okay.
you didn't turn off your teacher hat when you were potty training and being
Right.
a parent, right? It was all part of the same thing.
Okay.
Parenting, homeschooling is parenting. And we do all of those things with loving guidance and an understanding of that child. And I think that for most of us who grew up in the public school, we tend to think that school has to be hard,
Yeah.
and I have to be strict, and I have to be, all those things that we dealt with in a public school system. But we don't have to do that.
Gotcha.
We can still be parents. We can still take that the same stance with our homeschooling as we did with everything else you do with spiritual development. We don't have to bring the public school classroom or the public school teacher into our home.
Wow. That's good. That's very good. They're telling us 6% of U.S. kids are homeschooled, and the numbers are rising. What do you think the main cause of the rise of homeschooled kids is?
Well, statistics will tell you 2020 opened up a lot of parents' eyes.
Okay.
They got to see exactly what their children are being taught, and what little they're being taught, and how they did or did not align. And I think that was a very devastating time for America's children.
Yeah.
And homeschooling, I think it's important to note that homeschooling is not that. It's not being chained in front of a computer 8 hours a day. That is not what homeschooling is.
Right.
And so when parents realize that true academics really don't need to take more than 3 or 4 hours a day, and then you have the rest of the day to pour into your child and to create relationship and do all the things that nurture your family.
Yeah.
I think that is so appealing.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is just the fact that the world, as long as I can remember, it seemed like the cultural tide was turning against parents and parental rights. But now it's gotten just downright hostile. They're not even hiding it anymore. And I think parents are feeling that, and they're concerned. They're concerned for their children's safety. They're concerned about the issues of bullying. And like my son, sometimes they're just not getting it. Their children are not thriving in this system, and so they seek out better options.
For just joining us, we're talking to Rhonda Robinson. She's a veteran homeschool mom of 9, grandmother of 37, with a legacy of faith that now spans 4 generations. As she mentioned a while ago, the author of The Thriving Homeschool, A Christian Parent's Guide, coming out in April of 2026 from Focus on the Family. And she mentioned beginning homeschooling in the 1980s, long before really it was the trend, And appreciate you taking time for us today. And I've got one more question, because I'm seeing a term, and even as a homeschool parent, I don't know that I know what it means, to be honest with you, Ms. Robinson, and that is the blended homeschool approach. Can you give us a little bit more information on that?
Yeah, I think that really wasn't an option when I was homeschooling, but you're right. It seems to be on the rise, and I think it probably has several different meanings.
Okay.
The sinister meaning of it is schools are, because homeschooling is on the rise, basically schools don't trust parents, and so they're like, yeah, why don't you come in and we'll do, you can use our curriculum and you can just do our school at home, which we saw at COVID. That really is not the best thing.
Yeah.
But there's also, I would think, on the positive side, a blended, I would interpret that as, we don't have to do it alone anymore. There are so many families that are homeschooling now. There are so many churches that are opening their doors to homeschoolers and even letting them have co-ops. And there's so much support that you can hire out and do co-ops. And if you have a friend that used to be a science teacher, you can co-op with them to teach your high schooler science while you teach reading to their toddler. There's so many different things that you can do. Isn't that the beauty of homeschooling? You get to choose whether or not you want to blend, you want to hire it out, or you want to just enjoy your children and lead them as God directs.
We do, our homeschooling is through Lighthouse Christian Academy in Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is about 2 hours and 15 minutes away from us in West Tennessee. It's up closer to Nashville. And I'm right between Nashville and Memphis. But what this does is it gives a check and balance. So I send all of my kids' tests to another person to score behind me and make sure that it's correct and the grades are correct. And then they file those grades. And when it comes time to graduate, they have a class to walk with. We'll go 2 hours and 15 minutes to a graduation, and they can walk with that class. I also have an advisor. I have a tutor that's on hand because this math, Rhonda, is changing. It's getting tough.
It always does.
My goodness. And right now it's like I'm looking at my wife going, okay, you become the math teacher right now because I don't remember this stuff. It's getting more and more challenging. But then we have a tutor that's on hand. Would they call that blended homeschool? Is that kind of partially the definition?
That, like I said, I think that would be the good side of that. I think so. Like I think that's just normal homeschooling myself.
Okay. That's what I
hired tutors all through high school for math. I'm not going there.
Sure.
So that's I wanted my children to be able to go further than I am, and I'm a word gal, not a numbers gal.
Same here.
Then isn't that great that we can do that? We can hire the best for our children.
Yes.
We don't have to just take what's handed to us.
Yeah. Now, I enjoy numbers. I run a lot of registrations for camps and that kind of thing, and I enjoy numbers in those regards. But I was one of those that I was the weird one out. Geometry clicked for me, but algebra did not. And I wish I could have chose the other way around because I had 2 years of algebra and 1 year of geometry. But it was one of those things. And like you said, it's a beautiful thing to be able to bring somebody in that can help your children maybe even advance farther than you do. Thank you so much for taking the time for us, man. It's been a fast 15 minutes. I really appreciate you taking time. Is there anything else that maybe I didn't add that you want to add at the end of this program today?
Only in that if you're feeling called to do it, but you're worried about it, pray about it.
Sure.
The Lord will give you everything that you need when you need it, and trust in Him. It's definitely, if you acknowledge Him in all your ways, He will direct your path.
Wrapping up a school year, this is the time when a lot of parents are making that choice. What do I do next year? Do I send them back to public school? Do I find a private school or homeschool? And so really, folks, you do owe it to your kids and your family to just see what is the best option for you. And hopefully this podcast has been able to help you today. Ms. Robinson, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on the podcast today, as Season 43, Episode 20 is now in the books. We hope to see you in one or all of our worship opportunities this week. Sunday morning worship at 10 a.m., Sunday night Bible study at 5, following prayer at 4, graduation reception at 6:15, Celebrate Recovery Monday at 7, family prayer Tuesday at 7, Wednesday night midweek refresh at 7, and Thursday morning 10 a.m. ladies prayer. If you want to know more about our church, go to the website, harvesthumboldt.com. You can also email us at harvesthumboldt@gmail.com. You can call our church office at 731-784-2246. You can also send us a letter to 3401 Bledsoe Road in Humboldt, Tennessee, 38343. Whether you're listening via podcast or online on Harvest Radio on Sunday morning, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to having you back with us next week as we talk about habits, hobbies, and habitation. Thank you for tuning in. Until next week, God bless.